Woo. Right, now we are consider the Community Board Part A reports, starting with item number 9, road stopping at 11 Humboldt Street, Sydenham. Thank you. I want to ask a question. Mel wants to move it, and Sam is said here. Sorry, and Tim will second it. Thank you, Bruce. All yours, mate.
Really here for questions. I think the community board's recommendation's quite clear. We'll take a moment just to make sure everyone understands what we have done in terms of the community board's request for reconsideration of the policy. That makes complete sense, and we saw that at the time when the community board made that first recommendation. So we have moved to look at those applications that are coming through where there is conflict with strategic outcomes and say we won't take any more of those, put those on hold. We are still looking at them on a case-by-case basis if they don't conflict with the strategic objectives. And my team with our colleagues in policy and strategy and transport have started work on designing a process, and we'll be shortly going out to all the community boards to have discussions about changes and updates to this policy.
Okay, thank you very much. Aaron?
Yeah, so I understand the one around the not selling the land because of the tree. Why don't we not just put a protection order on trees before we sell the land, if there's significant trees on land?
That could be a matter we consider through that policy review.
Right, okay, yeah,
Okay,
that would seem to make more sense.
Thank you. I'll go, and then Yanni. Bruce, do we have to be careful how we word this? Because, say for argument's sake, it would stop every piece of land that you or us may want to sell. Say for argument's sake, could be mentioned, we won't sell Orange Theory Stadium because we could put some trees on it. Have we got to be careful along those lines, or is that am I thinking too far?
So the council already has retention criteria that specifically looks at all of its plans and strategies before we consider any sale or any disposal of property. So if there is a plan that says we will plant trees on X site that we can point to and know that that's going to happen, then we wouldn't even put it up for a decision. So the only properties that we look at for sale are where there is no currently identified use in any plan or it meets any of those other retention criteria. So we already have that in place there. So what we're looking at specifically for this policy relates to the situation where there could be further intensification, particularly on properties, and that is not adequately taken into account. It could be looking at where the particular part of the road reserve that is being considered for discontinuation should have had trees because the rest of the street has it, or there's those opportunities. So we want to look very closely at that aspect of it.
Okay, thank you. Yanni, you had a question?
I was just, in the report under 3.5, I was just concerned to see that it says there's properties which have effectively incorporated a portion of the legal road land adjoining their front boundary and have been fenced off. Is there any work underway around the site to ensure that people aren't doing this? And what I didn't really understand what the mitigation was, because it does seem quite strange that if I can just finish, if we're going to review the council's road stopping policy in light of the urban forest plan, do we also need to add something in there about the encroachment onto public space as well, and what is going to be done to deal with that?
I think that's a fair point, so yes.
Okay.
The move in the second would be happy. I appreciate that. Just incorporate something in the resolution that does that.
What do you reckon, Lynn?
Yeah, you don't need it in the recommendation. We will get onto that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, as a very young property person, I was involved with trying to resolve encroachments that came from the Dunedin City Council's desire to allow people to plant gardens during World War II to grow food. And still in the late 90s, we were still trying to resolve those issues where they were still occupying council land for those purposes. So it's a matter that's very dear to my heart, so I'll make sure we address that.
Yeah, maybe we could just have a noting provision so the action.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks. Just while this one is mainly focused on the road stopping policy, and it was clear that needed to happen. You mentioned that all of the bits of land that we sell go through a process where they look at different departments. But something that Callum mentioned earlier that our board had asked about is that actually the property disposal process that's going through the annual plan, none of those properties have been run past anyone to see whether they would be suitable.
That's incorrect.
Okay, so
Councillor.
we had asked staff at the time.
Yes.
They said it hadn't gone past.
Yeah, no,
people
that
to
has
consider
gone.
they'd be
That has
suitable
gone
for
through.
planting trees.
It has gone through staff, and we've removed some where they'd identified they were suitable for other purposes, even when those purposes weren't listed in any plans or strategies. So we certainly do that process, and we look at those things. We take a completely balanced approach, trying to look across all of council's objectives. But the one thing we do try and do is don't just hold it because it might be useful for some day. We want to actually see there is a plan and there's a pathway to get there for use there. And that's where there are gaps, that those fully developed plans aren't in place for a number of areas and strategies. And there needs to be some further work on those. So that will need to be done in time with working with our colleagues on that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we've got a mover and seconder. Have we got any debate? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. Carried. Number 10, Waterloo Road improvements, pavement markings. I'm happy to move this. Mark's happy to second it. Any debate? All those in favour? Against? Thank you. Carried. And ditto